All right, welcome back to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. Super excited for today's guest to introduce you to him. I'm just going to hop right into it, actually. So help me welcome the newly minted head coach of the University of North Texas, the Mean Green. I have a story of why I know this school too well, unfortunately. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful, the new head coach, Mr. Doug Marshall. Doug, how are you today?
I'm good, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me on and being able to do this show. I'm a big fan.
Oh, well, thank you, man. I appreciate the curveball you threw me. And we'll get more in depth into it. But so Doug and I had this scheduled when he was the head coach of Iowa Western Community College. Super excited to learn, his roots in junior college as a former junior college coach myself. And as we had this scheduled and was on the calendar, we're ready to rock and roll. And then I see this cool announcement saying the new head coach of the University of North Texas is Doug Marshall. And I got concerned because I've changed jobs a few times and it's a little busy. So I was well prepared, Doug, for you to just be like, look, man, I am just swamped. Can we push this back? And you didn't. And I'm just so grateful for that, man. I can't imagine how busy you are right now as you start transitioning a new state, a new job, new responsibilities with a family. So, man, just thank you so much for being here. It means a lot.
Yes, sir. Nah, and most definitely. It's a transition, but nah, it's a good transition, and I think we're figuring it out hour by hour at this point. But but nah, it's definitely healthy. I think it's a really exciting time for myself and my family. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And when you're listening to this, so this published on July 11th, we're actually on June 30th, 31st. Yeah. 30th. So like his signature, it hasn't even dried on the contract. So he is literally brand new. I might be, this will be a good question. Are we the first interview for you as the head coach of North Texas?
yeah, this is the first one. I actually got another one at like 2 o'clock today, so you
Oh,
guys get the first
yeah, nice. I feel like that's a feather in our cap, man. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to get into that not new profession, but new position at the University of North Texas here in the conversation. But let's take it back here a little bit. Let's learn more about you, Doug. How does coaching come into your life? How does it start transition from something that was maybe done to you if you were an athlete to where you started when that first time of like, oh, wait a minute, I think I could be a coach. Like that could be my job. When does that start for you?
man. So I always tell everybody that track and field kind of chose me. Like I was a hardcore, like I was a football player in high school, and Texas high school football is like, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy, it's king. And so everybody thinks they're going to the league and to the NFL, and you got these big dreams. And so I think I started running track in middle school or something like that. I think it was like sixth grade or something, and we were just trying out different events. And one of my friends went over to the jumps, and he did jumps in summer track. I didn't know anything about track. I didn't know anything, and so tried it out and ended up being pretty good at triple jump and things like that. And so in high school, we had a really, really, really good coach. Really, really inspired a lot of us that were on that team at the time. I graduated from East Central High School, Hornets. Shout out to all my Hornets, but it was he was a big inspiration on, you know what I mean, why I coach today, because he just poured a lot into us, and more than probably we had gotten from a coach. Me and my group, like the group that I was with, we were together from seventh grade through high school. And so
Wow.
he really poured a lot into us as a coach. And so he was a big inspiration for it.
Well, we love uplifting and honoring coaches. Let's stop the he's and his. You give us a shout out. Tell us this awesome coach that influenced you so well. What's his name?
Yeah, so Shane Whitewood, man, I don't even think he's coaching anymore, but amazing coach. I think we ended up fourth in the state that year. We won the 4x4. I think I got like sixth or fifth or something like that in triple jump and long jump or something. But it was a good team. Like, and he really developed that entire team to be elite men. Like not even on the track, but like he knew our parents, and he knew, you know, what they deal with and what they didn't deal with. He was an extension of everything at home. And so no, he really inspired me. You know, that was probably the first person that I kind of looked at and I was like, wow, like he, you know, he's a good coach. But I never thought I was gonna be a coach. Like I never, you know, in high school, even going through college, never really thought I was gonna be a coach. And my head coach in college, Coach Dave Harris, and he just retired from the University of Nebraska. But he asked me after my senior year if I'd be interested in coming back and being a grad assistant and coaching.
Wait, so Dave Harris, that means you went to Emporia State.
Emporia State, yes, sir.
Which means everybody is a GA at Emporia State. You know Cameron Babb?
Yeah, me and Cam were teammates, and Cam coached me.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because we had Cam on the show, and same thing. You know, I make the same joke with Emporia State. It's like, oh, well, of course you were a GA at Emporia State, because everybody. I didn't even go to Emporia State. And I think I went GA at Emporia State. Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was the plan then, as you're going through your college career at Emporia, great school in the middle of Kansas? That's where the JUCO world is. I know you were in Iowa, but Iowa maybe kind of replaced a little bit. Iowa was not JUCO when I was at Kansas JUCO, so it's been amazing.
Yeah.
But so what was the plan as you're going through Emporia State? What were you majoring in? What was the, like, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a business owner? What was the plan if coaching wasn't in your mindset?
Well, then I had big dreams. I thought I was going to be on ESPN. I thought I was going to be like Stu Scott. And I was like,
right?
Yeah. Stu Scott, yeah. And so I did communications, and then I got out of communications. Then I did education. So I was going to be a teacher, and I wanted to teach and coach. And then I got out of that. I hate it. So listen, this is a funny story, and I probably shouldn't tell this story because my kids are going to probably lock onto it. But I hated anatomy and physiology, and I think it was algebra, and our algebra was all online. I couldn't do algebra and anatomy. And so you needed those two classes, I think, to be a teacher. And so I hated them the most. So I ended up changing my degree again to recreation. So I didn't have to take those classes, but it ended up working out. It ended up working out really well. It did. I graduated with a reg degree at Emporia State. And so nice. it blended into everything that, you know, it has ended up today.
And then it sounds like still coaching wasn't in the mix, but then Dave was like, do you want to be a GA? Is that when the switch flipped of like, oh, wait a minute, this could be me?
No,
man. Okay.
No.
You fighting the urge. Like, I'm starting to wonder, like, are you actually a coach? Like, where does this happen? Okay. So take us through, keep us going.
No. So Dave asked me and I turned him down. I told him, you know, I was like, nah, coach, like I didn't want anything to do with school. I was done with school.
Oh yeah. You'd have to go do a master's. Right. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I get it. Trust me. I'm with you.
Exactly. And so, I told him no. I said, you know, I just want to graduate. I want to be done. I'll go work at the YMCA or something like that somewhere. And so, probably 3 weeks after that, there's a guy that was really involved in the program, and just sports and athletics in that Emporia area, as a whole. He came in and he asked me if I wanted to coach at a high school in the area, a small 1A high school. I would be like the head boys coach, and we had a head girls coach as well. And so that one kind of intrigued me a little bit more because I didn't have to go to school. I didn't have to go and take classes and do all that stuff. So I told her, yeah. I told him yes. You know, I'd be interested. And so I ended up getting the job as head boys track and field coach at Hartford High School, as I was finishing my degree at Emporia State. And so that's how I got into and started coaching.
So what drew you into, I can fully respect the not want to do GA because you didn't want to go to grad school, because that was me, by the way. I was done. Once I got that undergrad, it's like, I grew up, maybe you probably are different here, Doug. But I grew up thinking, you know, no one in my family had a degree. So to get a degree in undergrad was like a big thing. I might as well have been a PhD, for crying out loud. So
Mhm.
to go above and beyond that was like, that wasn't even in my mindset. I wasn't going to grad school and all that. So what was it about going? And I can imagine this 1A high school in Kansas, having coached in Kansas myself. There's cornfields, wheat fields, there's nothing else. There's not many kids on the team, probably because it's a small school. They're all probably, dual and tri athletes doing other sports. What was it that first year there at Hartford that was like, oh, like, was that the snap of like, oh, wait a minute, like this is me? Like, did you find yourself there, or was it just the ability just to be on a track all day? Because that's not a terrible thing either.
Right. No, it was really the kids, man. It was the athletes. Once I got into it, and I knew, at the end of my senior year, I wasn't gonna be a professional athlete. I wasn't gonna be able to go on and things like that. But I love the sport, and I had grown to love the sport even more throughout college. And so then being able to get on the other side of it and coach, and I was kind of like living out my dreams through them. And so like now I'm like, okay, now I get a chance to develop athletes. And then I
Mhm.
start thinking about Coach Whitewood, and you know what I mean, just kind of the impact that he had as a coach. And
Right.
so then that kind of started growing my interest, and and then they started getting better, and they kept getting better, and then we built relationships, and and so to just kind of see the joy in them, even through the hard workouts, just going through it, and going through an entire season, and continuing to see them and progress throughout the season, and then just seeing the joy on their faces when they did well, and you know what I mean, like that made me happy as a coach, and then being able to impact them and impact their lives. Off the track, like I was like, okay, like this is a cool little job. Like I could definitely see myself, doing something like this for a while.
So it appears that like someone like a Coach Whitewood obviously had such an influence with you on that they're not just triple jumpers or 100-meter sprinters. Like, they're people. They're Bobby, Tommy, Sean. They're people first that happen to do an event and happen to do our sport. So it sounds like Coach Whitewood had a great influence on you there. What was your coaching philosophy? Did you even have a coaching philosophy that early? Typically, we kind of fall back on how we were coached, which not always a bad thing. But how are you formulating your actual training, knowing that we don't talk about X's and O's here, Doug? Just overall that philosophy.
Yeah, so I really didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And like looking back at it now, like I really didn't know anything about,
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, the philosophy or even setting up training and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I just kind of did the same things that we were doing in college.
Right.
Just kind of mimic the workouts. I talked to my college coach, and he sent me some stuff, workout wise and things like that. And so I just kind of adjusted. I started tweaking stuff. I knew, okay, they can't handle this type of, what I mean, this type of training. Like they're not at
Mm-hmm.
this point. So I just kind of tweak stuff and adjust stuff, here and there like that. But like as far as like setting up things, like I didn't know how to set up training and cycles and microcycles, all of that
Right.
stuff. Like
Right.
I had no clue. I was just going out there and, hey, let's jump today. Let's, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and we would go out and do it. And so they I mean, they bought in, and they just continue to get better.
There's a fallacy out there that great athletes, I'm talking about, like, guys that make it to the NFL, high level women's basketball coaches, and in our example, NCAA All-American, so really, really good athletes, don't make great coaches because the majority of people that you coach aren't good athletes. I mean, it's rare to become a great athlete, right? And so they don't know how that, uncoordinated freshman in Hartford, yeah, Hartford,
Yep.
Kansas, how they can do it, right? And the reason I say that's a fallacy is because I think if you are even a decent athlete, you have that crux sometimes. You just forget what it was like to be that gangly freshman. You just, I picked it up and I figured out how to jump 49 feet, 50, whatever, you might have jumped in college. Did you have that at all when you first got there? Because you talked about getting workouts from coach. Were you able at that really rookie early year of your coaching to understand, like, oh, what I did is a junior and senior, like what things I was able to pick up, these kids, like, they can barely chew gum and walk at the same time. Were you able to immediately understand that part, or did you struggle maybe a little bit there?
It was a struggle at first.
Mhm.
It was a struggle trying to get, at that point I was trying to get, high school athletes that, a lot of times are just coming out to, to come out to run, or coming out because their friend is coming out, or whatever
Yep,
the case is.
absolutely.
And so I was asking them to, to do repeat 200s. You know what I mean? Like, and then I'm looking at them, I'm like, how are y'all struggling so hard? Or like,
Right.
what is going on? And so like just over time, I had to kind of take a step back and kind of look at things. And I was just like, okay, this is stuff that we did at Emporia State, you know what I mean? Where you got athletes getting recruited to run track and they've been running, and or you got high school, I mean, you got college juniors and seniors and things like that, who have been in the game for a while. And I'm asking, it's sometimes freshmen and sophomores in high school that have never run track in their lives, to do repeat 200.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and so, I took a step back, and you start to learn and you start to tweak things, and that's one thing that I've really tried hard to do, and I still do to this day, is just kind of evaluate where everybody is at. But
Hmm.
just that evaluation process, and realizing, okay, these kids can't handle, they might not be able to handle, this type of workload. Let's lower it, or let's adjust it or tweak it, or you go straight beginner, like all the way to the beginning stages, and develop from there. And so you learn those things through trial and error, but
Yeah.
it was an adjustment.
We get excited as coaches because we can see the potential. That's one of the great things about coaches is they see potential in others before they can see it in themselves.
Hmm.
But that has to be tempered with okay, we're still at day one, or they're not a gold medalist right off the bat. There's that
Right.
process there. So that's awesome. I appreciate your humbleness to say, hey man, I struggled there. I appreciate that. It's good. It's good for people to hear that.
Yeah.
There used to be. I'm a huge proponent of coaching education, and came up through the USATF coaching education side before USTF CCCA and Altus and some other great avenues that are out there. But there used to be, to do a level 2, you obviously had to have a level 1 certificate, but you also
Hmm.
had to have coached for 5 years before
Hmm.
you do that. And people struggle with that. It's like, no, I just want to go to level 2 and learn. But I think to your point about like those first few years of like, I'm still trying to find my way. I think that's important to
Hmm.
get that education and then get the experience of making mistakes, and getting a really talented freshman and a freshman who will not run for you after that year because of other things, and understanding like, oh, you have to figure out how to do both, and it's not the same. What you do with one is
Right.
not what you're doing with the other. So I think that's really important. So how long were you at Hartford, and what was next? What was your ambition with coaching at this point, now that you kind of got the bug, if you will?
Yeah. So I was there for, I think, officially maybe 2 years.
Mhm.
Um, it was so long ago, I feel like, but um, but
Wait,
yeah, I was there for
wait,
maybe,
Doug,
I
you were
know,
so young. Get out of here with that. That was so long ago.
right?
Get out of
I
here.
know, I
All
know,
right.
I know. I hear it.
Ought
I
to,
hear
ought
you,
to be young again.
I hear you. But man, it really feels like a long time ago. Like, it really feels like a long time ago. But it was a great 2 years. We developed well. We developed those athletes, and then I ended up moving to Western Kansas, and I took a YMCA job. So I was the sports director at the YMCA for in Garden City, Kansas. And while I was out there, um, I missed it, man. Like, I missed coaching. I went through my first year at the Y, and I just kind of caught myself. I'd be at high school, that the high school in town. I'd go over to their meets, and kind of watch a little bit of their meets. And so I actually had a teammate in college that was coaching the pole vault there at the time, Marcus Summers. And so he reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey man, like, would you be interested in coaching?" And so I was like, shoes, if I can make it work between between the Y and
Right.
here, then most definitely. And so he was like, well, our jumps coach is he is well, I think we're going to be looking for a jumps coach next year, and so I can let our head coach know that you might be interested. And so I was like, oh yeah, for sure. Like go ahead, man.
This is at Garden City Community College?
This is at Garden City High School.
High school, yeah. Okay, good, perfect. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So this is at Garden City High School.
Yep.
And so he asked me, and so we went through the year. That I think next fall, Mike Smith, amazing man. Like he's a heck of a coach. But Mike Smith reached out to me. I had a chance to meet with him, and he hired me as the jumps coach, horizontal jumps coach, long and triple jump coach out there for Garden City High School. And so that really spiked my interest. Like that really just kind of is what, like, I was just like, yeah, at Garden City High School, that's when I realized that, coaching is what I really wanted to do.
So you're back in it. You're back with the toes in the sand pit, for our jumps
Yeah.
coaches. That's where we always want to be. We don't want to be in the office doing paperwork. We want to be out in that sand pit. How did that experience at Garden City High School compare to that first opportunity at Hartford? Was it very similar, different? What was it like?
It was completely different. So I don't think a lot of people realize this, but Garden City is probably, I think it's one of the top 3 biggest, largest high schools in the state of Kansas.
Really?
Yeah, it's huge. It's it's huge. And so I went from having maybe at Hartford 20, 25 kids on the team as a whole. And I think I had like 30 or maybe 40 kids in the jumps group alone.
Wow.
It was a huge team. I think we probably had, probably pretty close to 100 kids
Wow.
on the track and field team between JV and varsity. It was a big team. It was a huge team, and so it was a big adjustment.
You almost had more kids on the team than maybe Hartford had as a school. I'm being serious. Hartford was pretty small. I guarantee it.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
Yeah, that had to be a little bit different. You had to figure out, as you're still formulating how to actually coach, so how to take the things that you learned and experienced as an athlete, how to coach, but also how to do that with 30 kids. That's different than 1 on 5 and 1 on 10. That's its own entity of coaching, is the quantity of kids, and then adding in all their different skill levels, not only skill levels, because we talk about that a lot, but their commitment levels. You
Right.
kind of touched on it earlier, like, you got some group of kids that, they're there 5 days a week. They, they're talking to you about what's tomorrow's workout, those kind of things. And you have other kids that are like, yeah, I'm going to miss tomorrow because then it's the point. I don't know, whatever, I'm just not going to be here, coach. So that had to be such an experience of like, wow, there's a whole bunch of kids here. What in the world do I do now?
Yeah, it was a big transition. And so we structured it, and Coach Smith was great. Like he was great. He was a great coach, but organizationally, like, he was amazing at kind of giving us some different ideas of how to do things, or how to structure your group and things like that. And so we ended up breaking the groups up, and I had basically like a varsity practice, and I had a JV practice, and then we just kind of broke it up like that. And if kids moved up to varsity, then they would just basically move up to the varsity practice. And so it kind of helped with how we balance things, and being able to just kind of coach a little bit better. But it was some days it was like it was a madhouse, because we had, I think, 4 different pits, and they went both ways. And so I'd have guys going one way, and I'd have girls going one way, and I'm just kind of walking up and down the runway, and just kind of trying to coach people at different times. And so trying to give it as many athletes attention as I can possibly give them during the day. But it was crazy sometimes.
That's the perfect example when people talk about I write every individual workouts for every kid. And I'm like, really? Do you? Like, what do you have? 4 kids? Like, like reality says that most people on all levels, not just high school, but in a lot of levels, you're coaching anywhere between 10 to 30, 40, 50 kids in event area. So individual workouts. Now you grouping. Let's not try to hero complex here. You're grouping. Okay, the A jumpers are doing this, speed jumpers are doing that. So what did you? What year is this roughly?
This is 2014, 2013,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
So around 13, 14, where are you? Are you doing anything coaching education wise? Anything like the Kansas track clinic, going to clinics, anything like that? Any kind of coaching education at this point?
Yeah, so I didn't really know anything about coaches education. And so
Okay.
at that point, we had some really talented jumpers. And so I kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about, you know what I mean, the development. And so I ended up going to complete track and field. I think it was complete track and
Mm-hmm.
field. Um and that's where I kind of got into the world of Boo Schexnayder
Ah, yeah.
and, kind of learned. And Walter Davis was actually my favorite jumper growing up, like, and going through
Yeah.
college and all of that stuff. And so I didn't know a lot about Boo, but I knew a ton about Walter.
Yeah.
And, I had a friend that went out to LSU. And so then as I started going, and kind of searching through complete track and field, that's when I learned about Boo, and they had some of his videos, and so I ended up buying one of his jumps packages at the time, and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of soaked it in, man. Like I think you know how like growing up you got those certain movies, and like almost every word to it.
100%.
Like
Yep.
I can probably, if you put on that complete track and field, I could probably kind of tell you
I
every, like
love
I
it.
could go word for word with Boo on the video. So I just kind of soaked everything in.
See, this proves how young you are, because I'm going to speak to the generation of my age, which,
Yeah,
there's going to be people older that are going to make fun of me and my age group. But to that point about the videos that rewind, and I'm talking about VCR, you probably bought the
yeah.
DVD package. We didn't have DVD back then. But the videos that you rewind, you rewatch, you wear out the tape. There was a volume 1 and volume 2. I'm going to get all the names and stuff incorrect, so someone correct me on Twitter. I think it was called Speed Systems. It was Lauren Seagrave and I'm gonna say Kevin Tyler, and I don't think that's the right name. But their tape system, their system 1 and system 2, their 2 VHS tapes revolutionized coaches in my era. That was the tape that we watched over and over about ground contact time, speed training, things like that. That was our uh coaching Bible, if you will, much like this, this collection of Boo Schexnayder videos were for you. So, but
Yeah.
you were doing it on DVD, so that's not the same. what,
It
what
was.
what was it? We talked before we hit record here today about Boo Schexnayder, and I've made my feelings known here on the podcast about Boo, and if you haven't listened to our episode with Boo, you might be the only one who hasn't. To be real frank with you, it's our number 1 episode, and we've done 100. This is number 163. So out of 163 amazing, awesome, strong and powerful track coaches around the world, Boo Schexnayder rightfully reigns supreme. You need to go listen to it. And I'd tell you, honestly, if you've listened to it before, I'd tell you to go listen to it again, because there's so many gems, not only his uplifting and honoring his journey, but what he talks about in the profession of coaching, I think was so powerful and important that we scream it from the mountaintop. We need to hear it over and over again. But for you, Doug, what was it when you were watching that tape? Can you remember that first time you watched it, and maybe things clicked, or maybe it was the way he talked with that nice accent of his, or maybe it was the way he explained things? What was it that resonated with you on that you were hooked to watch it 10, 20, 100 times more?
Man, I think the thing for me was kind of the way he explains things technically, and it just kind of rolls off of his tongue, and it's so simplistic, and you know what I mean. I guess it's easy for anybody to understand. The way he, like, it if he could teach a baby how to walk at 3 months, you know what I mean? Like because like, he can just explain it in whatever baby terms, and hit like and the baby will get up and start walking. And so like just kind of how simplistic the way the way that he just kind of rolled things off of his tongue. But
That is the best descriptor I've ever heard of his stuff. Because you're so right. You said, how simplistic it is. And in general, we like to think of, like, when you call anything simplistic, you're not typically given that that's not a positive. That's not a good thing, right? It's like, yeah, it's so
right,
simplistic. But that is the power of his teaching, is it is simple. Like, and he's teaching high
hmm
level things, but he's teaching, you're way smarter than I am. Even a dummy like me was able to catch some things like, oh my goodness, like I can coach, So I love that. That was the
yeah.
best description I've ever heard. He could teach a 3-month-old to walk right now, because he talk baby terms, man. It's amazing. I love it. So how did
Yeah.
you soak up that information, and what did you start, again, not talking X's and O's here, but what did you start changing? What were some of the things that you put into play for your coaching, based off of, him, and then other maybe things that you did for coaching education?
Yeah, so a lot of the simplicity, I kind of took that back to the way I coached, and I wouldn't maybe explain it in the same terms that he would explain it in,
Right.
but kind of twist it and make it work for the athletes that I
Mhm.
had and things like that. But that part of it, and then just the progression. I think that's when I
Mm.
really started to learn how to progress an athlete through learning how to do different things and how to put the runway together, and you know what I mean, like just
Mhm.
and not talking X's and O's like you said, but like just kind of how to build an entire, what I mean, program and
Right.
structure things out, and then learn how to tweak, because it's not all gonna go at the same speed that you want it to go
Right.
at. And then especially at the high school level, like you got some kids that I had kids that would pick stuff up in that day that I taught them, and I had kids that it would take 2 weeks for them to pick it up. And so just kind of trying to, like, the way he explained, how to structure things out, and how to progress throughout the year and things like that. Like that's really kind of what I took back from a lot of the videos that I would watch.
So you're officially a coach now. Not that you weren't at Hartford, but like your calling now seems to be like,
hmm
okay, this is why I was put here. I'm here to be a coach. What was your motivation for a career path? Were you thinking coaching college at all at this point, or were you still like, yeah, I'll maybe I got to figure out how to go back and get an education teaching certificate so I can be a high school coach? What was the kind of the at that point the motive the path you were seeking, or thought maybe you were seeking at that point for coaching?
Yeah, so funny part is, I like, once I started like looking and watching Boo, like I started looking at his career, and I was like, oh, okay, he was a high school coach, and then you know what I mean. He moved into the collegiate world, and he started. I think he was coaching at Blinn, and for a little bit, and so then I kind of looked at his path, and I was like, okay, this dude is smart as heck. He's a great coach. It'd be nice to be able to coach, a high school champion, and then maybe move on and coach collegiately and things like that. And so at that point, I coached a long jump champion. I think I had two dudes on the in the top three that year. And so then I was like, okay, I feel confident enough to be able to go into the college side of things, and coach at the college side. And so um, I didn't have anything. The coach at Garden City ended up reaching out to me about potentially helping out with the jumps, and the jumpers for him. They were starting the track and field program again. I think that was like maybe the year after Tyreek Hill ran like 9.9 or something like that, something crazy. They only had cross country at the time,
Hmm.
at that time. And so then I think they started kind of transitioning into the track and field side of things. And so he was coming in. He was going to take over the program, and he wanted to know if I would help. He was just going to pay me a little stipend. I'll keep my job at the Y, and he was like, "All you got to do is come out and coach, and go to a few meets." And so I told him, yeah, like I was on board. I was ready to go. I was good, and actually went back to Coach Smith after that last season, and I thanked him for everything, and I let him know, hey, Coach, I'm probably not going to come back next year. Just wanted to let you know now so you can find somebody else. And so quit my job, and, and like a month later, I found out that he got offered another job, and so he left. And so I was like, okay, All right. So so I was back at square one, with that whole thing. And so um at that point, I was just kind of keeping in contact with the administration at Garden City. I let them know that, if anything opened up, I'd be interested, things like that. And so then they hired another coach, and I think I might have called him, probably like 20 times a day, man, trying to just kind of get my foot in the door. And I told him, I'll take anything, like even if it's a volunteer position, just to kind of be in the world, like I'll take it. And so he ended up getting back to me, and he was like, yeah, if you want to help out, come on out. This is when we have practice. And so started showing up and just kind of really just helping. Like I feel like at that point I was like an intern, but
So you're
just
not getting paid. This is you showing up. You don't even know you have a place right in this program. You're just, all right, I'm here. Use me. Let me help. Whatever I can do.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
At this point, I was just in the mix, man. Like I was just out there. I'd help them, set up. If you needed the extra timer, I'd help them time. Just to get my foot in the door. And so ended up working out. Like I think 3 weeks later, I think the assistant coach ended up leaving. And he asked me if I wanted to move up to assistant coach. And so at that point, that's when I quit my job at at the YMCA, and I started coaching full time at Garden City.
How excited were you when he made that phone call? Because even when the assistant coach quit, I have to imagine there's still no certainty in your brain, like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get it, obviously. So, they're still like, I don't know, am I just going to be an intern for this year? But when he called to say, hey, do you want to be the assistant coach? Like, can you remember that phone? Like, were you just like overjoyed, like, oh, my first college gig, man, I'm in.
Yeah, no, I was going crazy, man. Like I got this thing. Like when I get really excited, like I just take off and run. Like I just run. So
That is how we are completely different, my friend. Whether I'm sad, happy, excited, perplexed, I ain't
I'm not
running,
running.
man. No. That's, I cannot connect with you on this. I don't know where that comes from, man.
No, I
So you were
remember. I
pumped.
remember it. Yeah, no, I was pumped. Like he called me and he told me everything, and so he asked me if I'd be interested. And so I told him, yeah, like most definitely, I'd definitely be interested. And so I went outside. I think I ran down the street and tiredly walked back home. But no, I was really excited. It was definitely something that I had been really thinking hard about, and I really wanted. It was my passion had really grown in track and field. And so that was I mean, I obviously, one of the most special days of my career.
What do I in the same vein, I can remember the first call I got. I started very similar as a high school coach up in the Chicago area. And I remember the first time I got that call of like, hey, you're going to hire you as a college coach. And I remember, and I was, so young, so dumb, not much has changed except for I'm not young anymore. But I remember thinking personally, it was like, oh, I'm in the big time now. Now I was at Troy University, which is the greatest university in the world. But it's not like I was at Alabama, Auburn, or whatever, what I'm saying? In fact, it was a new program, had just kind of started the last few years, but I started thinking like, oh, well, everything, the intensity has to ramp up 100. Everything has to ramp up 100. And what I found was the reality was, oh no, you're still dealing with people. You're still dealing with kids.
Mhm.
Maybe they're a little older. Maybe they're a little bit more experienced, but they ain't. Again, they're not gold medalists. They're not awesome. They haven't been working out and doing high level track and field for a long time. And so I made the mistake of coming in and just going everything at 100, when in reality I needed to kind of pump the brakes and figure things out, what works, what doesn't work, who am I working with, who am I not working with, etc. What was that experience? You've now been working, you've had this goal of being a college coach. You quit everything and got nothing, meaning pay. You were just out there helping
Mhm.
out, and now you get your official, the stamp is on you. You are a college coach. what was it like during that first few months of practice and, all the things that go with it? You get your gear and you got to learn how to recruit and figure that out and all that kind of stuff. What was it like, that experience for you those first few months?
Yeah, so it was insane. It was nuts because at the time I had taken over, I was transitioning out of a job at the YMCA and going into coaching full time at the collegiate level. And so I had zero experience recruiting. I had zero years experience coaching at the college level as well. And so it was a different beast. And then I was dealing with also a group of athletes who had, got recruited by one guy, and then he leaves, and then you have another coach come in, and then he hires an assistant, and then the assistant coach was their coach.
Oh
Then
yeah.
he leaves, and so they're on their third coach within a matter of a month and a half.
They're looking at you like, all right, when's the countdown? How long are you going to be here? 30 days, 60 days? You leaving just like everybody else is. Yeah. That's a great point. That's another point that we just don't talk about a lot in the coaching profession.
Right.
Great points there. Yeah.
Right. And so like not only do I have to kind of try to build the trust of these athletes, but now they have to trust this coach that has 0 years of experience, has never coached in college in his life, and only has a high school background. And so I think they kind of looked at me and they're just like, you know what I mean? Like, this dude is our
and
coach.
rightfully so, right? Like,
Right.
like
Exactly.
if a dude grabs the wheels of the airplane and says, "Yeah, hop on," I've never flown before, but hop on. I'd be like, "Whoa,
Hmm.
whoa, what are you crazy?" Like, I'm not doing that. Yeah, so I love that. You're like, "Yeah, come to Garden City. Let's go. Let's jump." It's like, "Well, you've never coached before, and by the way, I don't know how
Yeah.
long you're even going to be. Why should I listen to you?"
Yeah.
That's right. All the time. So earning that trust for those athletes, and at the same time, figuring yourself out. You're trying to figure out
Hmm.
who am I as a coach, my philosophy, what am I going to be doing here, and learning all these new things. That sounds like a recipe for disaster, my friend.
Oh yeah.
How did it go?
It was, so if you thought the plane was crashing, it hadn't crashed yet. Like, it hadn't crashed yet. Well, like, and so going through that, I knew I do something to build their trust. So I just kind of start showing up
Mhm.
to every activity on campus that, you know what I mean, I felt like they would be at,
Oh wow.
and just kind of got used to them, got to know them a little bit more. I know that, I mean, the biggest thing is, like, we were so close in age. I think at that point I was like 25,
Mhm.
24, 25. And so you at that end, and they're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, like the age difference was, you know what I mean? And so, like, I just kind of tried to get to know them, like, just to build the trust. And so we finally built the trust, and then the head coach leaves. Like, the head coach leaves. And so now I'm in a point where I'm like 2 months in, or 2.5 months in, and now I'm the interim head coach. And so I'm like, God dang.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mean this
Yeah.
offensively, Doug, but hopefully you'll agree with me and you push back. It's quite okay. You're the interim head coach. You don't know anything. 2 months, you probably don't even know exactly
Zero.
where the bathroom was from the office, for crying out loud. I mean, that's amazing.
Zero.
That is literally, what do they say? Out of the frying pan into the fire. It's like, oh, it's getting
Hmm.
hot in here. Oh, we'll just jump right into the fire. It gets even worse. How,
Right.
any thoughts? Because you kind of, you have a lot of different options when they say, hey, we're going to make you the interim head coach. You could quit, but that's an option, and I don't know that how many people would necessarily fault you for that.
Right.
Or you can dig in and say, okay, well, I don't know anything, I better call, reach out, figure out, you use people at the in my administration and maybe others as well. What thoughts are going through your head? Are you concerned at all? And I'm gonna use the word scared at all, like, man, I'm flying this plane and don't know how to fly it. I'm literally going to crash this program. It's already skimming.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna finish it off here. What's going through your mind at this point?
Uh, to be honest, like, I was just kind of all over the place, and like at that point, I had every group. You know what I mean? I had every single group, and
Hmm.
I didn't really know any. Well, like you said, I didn't know a thing. Like, I didn't know anything at all, and so my number one thing was to try to get the kids to, on board, and just try to hold everything together um as long as possible. And so then it became a routine. to where, you just kind of get used to seeing this group, and just kind of handing stuff out. But
Mhm.
it was it was madness. Like it was definitely a crazy, crazy time, career wise. And I was under a lot of stress. Like I was like, man, if this is what coaching is, then I might have to, I might have to go crawl back into the YMCA field. But no, it was insane.
That
It was
that's what I
definitely crazy.
that's what I wonder. People, and again, I'm guilty. I was the guy that was a high school coach and was like, "Oh man, college is just so much easier. It's all you do. You don't have to worry about other things. You don't have to worry about the job at the YMCA. You don't have to worry about teaching. I can just focus on coaching." And you think, well, that is easier. Well, it has its own complexities, especially for one who didn't even realize that those complexities were going to be part of your responsibility. So, how did you, as you go through the year? It's one thing to be a coach and and talking about being on the field, on the track, and coaching long jumpers, and now coaching throwers and distance, and you got everybody, but there's also that responsibility of the head coach. There's forms to fill out, there's budgets to keep track of, receipts, maybe hiring an assistant coach, and you're the intern, by the way, so you're also kind of that overall, like, okay, I'm kind of interviewing every day to be the head coach if that was a desire of yours. How did you balance the, what I'm gonna call the coaching, the physical coaching side versus the head coach? I have to do all these different paperworks and responsibilities along with that title.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time in my athletic director's office, like just kind of trying to figure out, how do I do this, or if I need this, how do I get this? And so I'm really big on like trying not to make the same mistakes twice. Like I really work hard not to make the same mistakes twice. And so I was writing everything down step by step, like trying to figure out how to do everything on the administrative side. And
Mhm.
then, I had to kind of put a wall up between the administrative side of things and the athletic side of things. And so, like, when I went out to practice, I just kind of started putting a wall up and left the administration side
Hmm.
out because I had too many athletes to deal with by myself. And so I knew I couldn't think about, oh man, I got to get receipts in while I'm in
Mhm.
practice, or you know what I mean. I gotta make sure I turn this paperwork in to go recruit, or whatever the case is. Like I had to focus on what was going on with the athletes. And so then we just kind of started breaking practices up, and you know what I mean. Like it became more manageable. And so once I got like into like the routine that I needed to be in, it became a lot easier. And so then I mean, at that point, I thought, I was like, okay, well, maybe I can do this. Like maybe I can do the whole head coaching thing.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, I applied for the head coaching job. I had no clue. I was not ready to be a head coach, man. Like I didn't know anything.
Mhm.
Looking back at it now, like I organized everything out, you know what I mean, practice wise, but I didn't know anything about, but being a head coach and, the duties and things like that. And so um it 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 was really great because I had an athletic director, Dan Delgado, and he didn't hire me. But and talking to him and things like that, I kind of wanted some feedback. And so he brought me into his office. And Dan, if you know Dan, he doesn't mince words. Like he's gonna tell you how it is, and he's gonna keep it straightforward with you. And so he set me down. He told me, he said, Doug, you're a great coach. And he said, one day you're gonna be a really, really great head coach. But he said, you're just not ready yet. You're just not ready yet. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's interesting. We talk about, and I've already mentioned it in today's episode, that, one of the powers of coaches is you see something in an athlete before they can see it in themselves. We recently had Jamie Pollard, the athletic director of Iowa State University, on the podcast, and we talked about, what's your role for coaches, specifically track coaches. And it was kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, the AD has to see things in assistant coaches and head coaches that they don't see themselves. So Mr. Delgado here seemed to have, I mean, it's kind of funny now that we know you're the new head coach of University of North Texas, that like he said, you're going to be a great head coach, just not now. Like he saw something in you then that maybe you didn't see in yourself at that time. That's interesting. That's a different role, an athletic director to a coach, seeing that in another person. Wow. Did that give you like hope, or was it deflating of like, I'm not getting this job?
Yeah. So it was really deflating. And again, I was 20, I think I was 25 at the time. You know what I mean? And so I took it as disrespect. I was just like, what do you mean I'm not ready
Yeah.
yet? Like, you know what I mean?
Isn't that
In my
funny?
head.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hey, I get it, man. If I was 25, same thing, man. Absolutely.
And so I didn't get it, as you know what I mean, like I didn't really truly understand the depth of what he was saying.
Right.
And now looking back at it, I'm like, okay,
Bingo.
I should, yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one, because I was not ready yet, and I had a lot to learn. And so he hired or they hired as an administration, they hired, oh gosh, and I don't Ray Putnam. Ray Putnam. I love the dude, man. They hired Ray Putnam as the head coach. He was a distance dude from up north, like gosh dang. Oh, like that Boston area. And so he came in with like this really, really tough, gritty Boston. We're gonna do this.
If you haven't been to Western Kansas, let me tell you what you don't find in Western Kansas. Anybody from Boston. Yeah. Wow.
Exactly. And so he comes in with like this really rough, this like really gritty, like Boston, like, like, oh, it's me against the world. Like, and so he came in like a drill sergeant where, I was more of a caring and, communication, like come talk to me, that type of coach. And he came with like the complete opposite. And so I hated it. Like I hated it, and the kids hated it, and like everybody hated it. Like, and so the kids would kind of laugh at him because he's just serious, like like in your face type dude, and so we really bumped heads, like, and this is like and I'm talking from authenticity, you know what I mean, like what you talk, like we really bumped heads for like maybe a year and a half that I was there. Like I didn't know what he was trying to do. I didn't agree with it, and like he wanted me to coach a certain way, and it wasn't me. And like we just really bumped heads for like a year and a half, and I thank God he didn't fire me. Like I still, it's funny because we talk to this day, and I tell him the same thing. I'm extremely grateful for him as a coach, because I learned a lot from him. But I thank God he didn't fire me because because of how much we bumped heads, and so it had gotten to a point to where like I went into his office and I sat down, and we both just we were just like, look, like this thing isn't gonna get done with us being on opposite paths. Like we gotta come together, and we gotta figure it out. And he talked about me and the things that he liked about me as a coach, and I talked about the things that I liked. And so that was probably kind of the turning point for our relationship as as head coach, assistant coach. And then we just kind of started clicking, and that was the point to where like Garden City wise, like we started getting better and better, like for the kids and for the athletes. And so shoots, man, maybe 6 months after that point, like I was in Houston, Texas, and he calls me and he's like, Doug, you got it, man. You're probably gonna take over. He said, I'm taking a job closer to home. And I talked to Dan and the rest of the ADs, and I told them that I want you to be the next head coach. He's, I don't know if that's the direction they want to go in, but I feel like you've earned it, and good luck with everything. And so it was a bittersweet moment because like we had grown closer and closer and closer together over those 6 months, and we had really learned how to respect each other and work with each other. And I really started learning how to work for him as an assistant coach. But it was a really sweet moment because, this is an opportunity that, I kind of grown into
Mhm.
over these past 2.5, 3 years at that point. And so it was interesting, man. It was
So,
interesting.
so you got it. You got the head coaching job
Yes,
with the
yes, I
same
ended up.
with the same AD, Delgado.
Yes, I don't. Ooh, Delgado. I don't know if Delgado was still the AD at the time. I
I,
think he might have moved on.
I was wondering if he gave you any feedback because a couple of years earlier he said you're just not ready, and then
Mhm.
now you were. I wonder if he had given you any feedback of like, hey, here's those places I've seen you grown that and I think you are maybe not ready because no one's ready for their first head coaching job. I truly believe that. I mean, you can have all the
Right,
plans and formulate and have amazing mentors until you're in the hot seat. It's an experience job. You got to get the experience of being in that seat.
right.
So I was just curious if he had given you any feedback of like, hey, here's where you're growing that I think, we can give you the shot. So I just wondering about that. Mhm.
No, so the AD at the time was John Green, which that's another guy that I owe a lot. I owe a lot to a lot of gratitude towards him because obviously he gave me my first head coaching job, and so but I did call Dan afterwards. I did call him after I finally I got the official phone call from
Tell
everything.
tell me you didn't call and rub it in his face.
I was like, yeah, yeah. I said, Dan, I got the job. No, no, no. I called him and I thanked him for everything.
Yeah.
And we talked for a little bit. I told him, you were absolutely right. Like everything that you said in that meeting, 2.5 years ago or whatever it was, it was all absolutely true. Obviously except for the part that I'm gonna be a really great coach, but you know,
That remains
I
to be seen, my friend.
that
Uh,
remains to be seen. Exactly.
what's striking to me, Doug? I had a hard time believing what I heard when you said you mentioned great words about Delgado, Dan, right? Dan Delgado.
Um,
You said he's a great AD. He's awesome, instrumental, but he didn't hire me. Like that didn't. That's not compatible, right? It's like, hey, he didn't hire you. How can
right.
he be good, right? And then you said with Ray Putnam, hey, we clashed, not the same style. He tried to make me coach in a certain style. But man, what a great guy. He helped me. We talked to this day. So what strikes me here is you seem to have a very good um, grace about you that if someone is not compatible with you, you still have the ability to like forgive and great, like you don't hold grudges, maybe is what I'm, at least from those two examples. It's just striking to me because especially with the head coach, if you weren't copacetic with them and the styles seem to be two completely different, most coaches are bouncing. They're gone. Now you get some coaching, college coaching experience, you can go find another JUCO Division III, whatever. You'd go find another job. It just strikes me how like what is that about you? Where does that come from? Where like I keep using the word grace, where you seem to have like, okay, I may not agree with you, but that's okay. We can still be cool. Where does that come from?
Yeah. So man, that's my parents. Like it just growing up and like you learn how to deal with situations. And
Mhm.
my dad, like I spent a ton of time with my dad because my mom, I would drive my mom crazy. And so she'd tell me, hey, just go with your dad, like, or just go, your dad's leaving, go ride with him. And so like I was everywhere. My dad was a pastor, and so I was always in the church too. And so but my dad was patient, man. Like he was really patient. And he always has a lesson. Like if he was on the show, he sit here and he'll tell you a story and he'll tell you the lesson behind it, and you'll be like, okay, yeah. But no, no, he was always really patient, but like always wanting to work with everybody. And so
Mm.
he'd find ways to work with people. And then, obviously growing up and you deal with different things and you deal with different people and situations, and then watching him deal with different people
Mhm.
and deal with different situations, you kind of start learning about, okay, well, if we can't make it work this way, then it's got to be a way to be able to make it work. Like, and
Mhm.
so let's figure out a way to make it work out. And
Wow.
so A lot of that, and just a lot of self-evaluation. Like, my wife is amazing. Even last night, I mean, we were talking about something last night, and she was like, you just need to give it up. Like, just give it up. You know, you're at this point, like, just give it up. And so
Wow.
being able to realize when people are helping you and telling you the truth. And you know what I mean? Like, it's not always malicious. It's not always negative. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like, people need to hear the truth sometimes. And sometimes you got to put your pride to the side
Mm.
and really listen to what people are saying. And so
Yeah. It,
that's been a big part.
that bears repeating, putting your pride aside.
Hmm.
We are very quick to, when someone says something negative to us, whether it's about our style, whether it's about our whatever, we're not ready to be a head coach, etc. We take that as personal, like those daggers to us, and it's like, well, you are automatically on the enemy list. To put that pride aside and actually hear it, and be able to evaluate it and think, oh well, maybe they're right, maybe I do need to either gain more experience or learn this part of the job, etc. So boy, you are so honoring of your mom, dad, and wife, man, because it was just kept exuding from you grace. And then when you talked about your dad and his profession, it's like, oh yeah, forgiveness. That's hopefully, what's in that world. That
Hmm.
seems exudes from you. So that's awesome, man. Yeah. What a as we turn back to Garden City here, what a roller coaster, man. I was writing down your uh titles at Garden City: intern, assistant coach, interim head coach, assistant coach, head coach. I mean, that's a whole career right there, and this is in one school, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
So wow. Well, Garden
yeah.
City, the Broncos, man. I coached at Neosho County over on the east side of Kansas, and Dave Self was the head coach back when I was a coach. He's now the head coach at Sam Houston State. I just have lots of great memories of making fun of Garden City's jerseys, to be real frank,
Oh
the
yeah.
yellow and brown,
Good
but just
God.
battling Barton and Hutchinson and Butler. I mean, that's just a brutal conference. How did you
Yeah.
come out unscathed? Well, where was the next stop, and why, coming out of the top conference in the country for National Junior College track and field?
Yeah, so the KJCCC is crazy. You know, I think it's 15 teams. You know, you got 15 teams deep in the state of Kansas, and there's some extremely talented teams, coaches, athletes. You know, like you're going up against the best of the best
The
in
best
junior
of the
college
best.
at that point. And so just kind of trying to learn how to navigate those waters, you know what I mean? Like, we knew we were gonna have a hard time, like we were gonna have a really hard time uh recruiting against Barton and Butler, and you know what I mean, like Coffeeville, like those cloud, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
those really top tier schools at the time. And then now, I mean, you add in Fort Scott, and you know what I mean, like
Yeah. Right.
you
Yeah.
add in a lot of
It got
those.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but I mean, at the time, you know, like, it was crazy, and so we had to try to figure out different ways to try to get the upper hand. And you know what I mean? Like, what can we sell? You know, how can we bring athletes in and get them to understand it? So, you know, we knew, like, we're gonna have to develop kids, and we're gonna have to really develop athletes. Like, we're not gonna get an 11-3 girl that's going to come through here. You know what I mean? We're going to have to try to take that 12-1, 12-2 kid and bring them down to 11-6. And
Mhm.
so just kind of being realistic and learning, like, how to navigate those waters to where Garden City can be successful, or there's going to be success at Garden City. And we did it. Like, I mean, I hired an amazing assistant coach, Colton Coleman. He's at Sam Houston State now.
I know
I
Colton.
tell him,
Yeah.
yeah, I tell him all the time. I tell him he's the worst coach in America, and, and he tells me I'm definitely the worst. Now we give each other a hard time. It's like my brother, man. But we hit it off real fast, and so he's a Texas guy. I'm a Texas guy, and so we hit the road, man. Like, we would hit the road, and we would go and recruit, and we would come back, and we would develop our athletes, go to a meet, hit the road. You know, like, it was a grind at Garden, but like, we just kind of like we just worked, man. Like
Mhm.
we really just we really just put a lot of work in. And so then our athletes started developing, and then they started getting better, and they started to see it, and they started trusting everything a little bit more. And so like the wheels just kind of started turning a little bit more. And then Jeremy Capo, excuse me, um was the AD at Iowa Western at the time. And so um actually I was at nationals. I was at outdoor nationals, and me and Keith Blackwell were talking. And you know, he came over to me, and if you know Keith, you know how he is. And so he came over and he was like, "Man, when are you gonna leave this place?" And so Keith was a Garden City guy too. You know, he's a real good dude. And so you know, I told him, I was like, man, I don't know. Like I don't really have any plans. Like it's not like I'm looking to leave. Like we're here. Like we're doing what we're doing. And so he asked me if I'd be interested in Iowa Western's open position. And so you know, at that point I told him, you know, yeah, definitely. I think it's a great place. I feel like they can do some really big things. And so we went through the summer, and that I was at a coach's education. I was it was with Todd Lane at the
Yeah.
USTF CCCA.
Mhm.
I think it was the event tech for the jumps. And so I was nervous the whole time because I had already done my interview, and then we left, and me and Coach Coleman drove to Chicago from Kansas.
Hmm.
And we went and did that. And so I was in class, and I couldn't think about anything except for hopefully getting this phone call from Iowa Western. And so I finally got the phone call, and Jeremy called me and offered me the head coaching job there. And so you know, that's kind of when that whole journey began.
And why the change? So I don't know the level of the programs necessarily at that time. Meaning, I don't know if both of you guys were, if Garden and Iowa Western were battling in the top 10 at nationals, et cetera. I have no idea. Uh, but you're going north, so you're going farther away from home.
Yeah,
You're going to Iowa.
yeah.
I haven't lived in Iowa, but I've lived in Kansas, and you know, it ain't like we had the dream to move to Iowa. Um,
Yeah.
why move to Iowa Western? Better pay? I hope so, first of all, but I mean that could be a reason. What was the reason for moving to an Iowa Western community college?
It was, I think it was everything, man. Like even when I was doing the interview process, and you know, like I knew, okay, you know, if the opportunity came about, like, you know, it would be a great opportunity. But like when I showed up to campus, and when I got there, and you know, I met Jeremy, like Jeremy played a huge part in, you know, why I decided to leave, why I decided to leave Garden City and go to Iowa Western. And so there were some changes, you know what I mean? There were some changes and things like that going on at Garden. And you know, I just felt like I needed a fresh start, and I just needed a new start. And this opportunity was going to provide that and more, you know what I mean? And it was going to be a great opportunity for my family and for all of us. And so it was something that came at the right time. And then Jeremy just kind of he sealed the deal with
Hmm.
everything. And so I was like, you know, I had the conversation with my wife, and you know, we both felt like it was going to be a great move for us. And so we ended up moving on. But I think if I had to pinpoint a reason why I left, it would probably be Jeremy Capo, man. I'd have to
Wow.
say that one. Yeah.
What you know, I mentioned the roller coaster at Garden City, in as much as you are the head coach at Garden City, there's still, especially in the same program, there's still that lingering. It's like, yeah, that guy used to intern. That guy used to be the associate. He was the interim head coach, but we didn't give him the head job. And he was the assistant. Now he's the head. Real, you know.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about from a whole different side, or from all sides, 360. Uh, you know, being in small town Kansas, even as the track coach, this is something that's fairly unique, I think, in the KJCCC world. That the town knows who you are, even as the track coach, because there ain't nothing else going on. At least in Chanute, Kansas, I was the head coach there, and it was a nobody, and people knew me, and I was like, man, y'all bored, you know, ain't nothing else going on around here. Y'all know who the track coach is. But you got those, so from the neighborhood, the town itself, other coaches, administrators, you do have this past, this history there. You do get a clean slate, right? No one knows you in Iowa Western, besides, I came from Garden. That's all they know. They don't know the roller coaster. So you get this clean slate going Iowa Western. Seems like you have a really good, immediate type of relationship with the athletic director. What did you do differently? Because I'm assuming, correct me if I'm assuming incorrectly, very similar. I mean, they're both junior college, different conferences, but it's still junior college. Same region. When I say region, I know there's regions for junior college, but same location region, right? You didn't move to California and coach junior college there. You got this clean slate. What did you do differently? How did you put your fingerprints on the clean slate of Iowa Western?
Yeah. So coming into Iowa Western, like I knew I had to build a culture. Like that was going to be the number one thing was, get the athletes to trust me and build the culture. I hadn't been the head coach at Garden for for a very long time. And so it wasn't like, we were having this crazy success. I mean, Iowa Western at the time was better than Garden City in a lot of different ways. And so, just my number one thing was to try to get the athletes to trust and understand that like I have their best interest at heart and I want them to succeed and get better. And so that's the culture that, like I really wanted to build onto everything. And so, once I built and I guess I put together our coaching staff, we all get in this room and we didn't talk about X's and O's. We didn't talk about any of that stuff. We talked about how we can, love the kids, get them to buy in, build this culture. And I told them the culture that I wanted. And I told them, like, if we can do these things, like, guys, like in 3 years, and you can ask my assistant coaches, but, I told them, I said, like, if we can build these things and we can do these things and we can get the kids to buy into all of this stuff, like in 3 years, we could be competing for national championships and things like that, because we have the things that we need, the things, like the things. But if these athletes don't buy into what we're trying to do, and they don't buy into and they don't understand that, we actually care about them as people, they're not going to go hard for us. But if they do, then they'll run through a wall for us. And so we got to build those relationships.
So I know the one of the other sides to what you just said there, because very bold move, sir, to say, hey, if you build the culture like I'm describing, we can win a national title in 3 years. Now, pause there. I don't know. Was Iowa Western, before you got there, were they top 10? Like, or you coming from the bottom here? Did they already have kind of a decent little thing going and you just had to course correct or not?
No, man. It was and I never say a struggling program, because I feel like if I say that, that's negative, I guess, towards the past coach and the past staff.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it was definitely a program that had a lot of really great talent. I think it was just a program that just kind of needed some change, a different voice and things like that. But I mean, stat wise, I think their women might have been top 25 or something like that. Yeah. And then I know their guys were probably, I know for sure, top 15.
So it's easier to win a national title if you take over a team that's been in the top 5, right? It's easier to build a peak on a peak. Getting baseline here, we were not top 5 when you came in. So to come in and say, hey, if we build this culture the way I'm describing it, we can win a title in 3 years. Bold move, bold move, bold move. Bold move. Bold. I don't suggest it. I don't suggest it to anybody out there. Remind me, I'm so sorry. Your throws coach, his name.
Yeah, Mikhail Rodell.
Okay, so Mikhail and I were having this conversation at the JUCO National Meet this past year, indoor, Pitt State, and he tells me that story because I was talking about. Because by the way, spoiler alert, he did it. By the way, did it more than once. By the way, but he told me that story. And so I get to hear the story from him. Like, I was like, well, what did you think when he said that? Like, I mean, it's one thing to get all jacked up and be like, oh, we're going to do it. And it's like, but it's also like reality. No one does this.
Yeah.
in general, right? And he was like, man, he goes, I kind of just believed him. He goes, and
Yeah.
look what we've done, so what was it? You've done something more than once, I believe. I'm terrible. I don't fact checks. I have no idea. I know he's won a national title. I think you've won 2. Is that correct?
It's 3. I mean,
Okay,
I'm
3. No,
not
no, you
counting, but
correct me.
it's 3.
Correct.
No.
We don't count. Yeah. Where's the live button? I need to have one of those, man. Be proud for you and
No,
your
it's 3.
program. You won 3. Okay. So you've done something that honestly the majority of coaches in the profession will never do: win a national title. It's
Yeah.
there's only one a year. 2, I guess, if you want to say indoor and outdoor, and 3 if you want to count cross country. But just all of us, the majority of us, are going to go through our career and not have a national title. What was that first one like? Because that's the fruition of what you said. You came down and from the top of the mountain and came down and said, hey, if we do this, we can win. What was it like to actually do it, to actually accomplish that goal? What was the feelings of actually hitting that goal?
Man, it was a rush of emotion. I don't know if you've seen the video. It came down to the 4x4, and
Oh, even better. Sweet.
yeah, yeah, it came down to the 4x4, and so we were ahead. We were ahead, but we knew we had to finish, and we had to finish, I think, in the top 3 or some top 4 or something like that. And so all the confidence in the world in my women to be able to get it done. But I mean, I was all over the field. I was, you know what I mean? I was praying. I was sitting down, getting up, sitting down, getting up. And then, we have coaches that are coming up to me like saying, congratulations, coach, you deserve it. I'm like, no, it's not over yet. Like, it's not over yet. But no, like it was a very, very, very emotional moment for me. And I remember how crazy it was because, as Nikisha Price is finishing the crossing the finish line, I'm going crazy. The team is going crazy, and like I just kind of run over to them, and I felt like it was like a big group hug, but it was just kind of like, for me, it was like you've been through. It felt like you've been through it all. Like you started from the bottom. Kind of like Drake. Like you started from the bottom. You know what I mean? And so it was like you started as a volunteer or a high school coach at a 1A high school in Kansas, Eastern Kansas, and out of everything, all of this has led to this point. And I remember I hugged the team, and I went over and I grabbed my cell phone and I called my wife on FaceTime, and she was checking the results, live results like crazy. Yeah. And so I called, and my kids are going crazy in the house, and she's going crazy. And I just remember like just sitting there and just crying. And Aaliyah McNeil, she won an outdoor championship for us in the high jump. I remember her looking over at me, and she said, "Coach, why are you crying?" And I was just like, "Sweetie, I'm just so happy. Like I'm just too happy." And so like just everything, like just everything. I at that point I just thought about everything that I kind of gone through, and the staff had gone through, and like Mikhail came from Johnson County where they dropped the program. You know what I mean? Like everybody had their own stories, like everybody had, their own thing. And so just to kind of see everything come to fruition, and that be the ultimate goal for everybody. Like, excuse me, it was a great.
That's awesome.
It was a great feeling. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, only you and your staff knows all the things that went into it, right? The kid that got injured that was going to score for you and bandaged it up and got 8th instead of the 2nd that she was supposed to, and that's what helped set you over. No one knows all of the kid that goes academic ineligible, the recruit that said they were coming and they didn't. No one's the 12 flat sprinter that becomes an 11.4 and doesn't make 100-meter final, but is an important leg on your 4x1. No one knows that story, that complete, like it's more than the 50 points that you scored at the meet. It's individual stories of how those points came together. And some of that part of that story is not even kids that scored, people that were, Susie, who didn't even make it to nationals, but supported the team and helped them to become that. It's an amazing culmination of 1,000 different stories. The AD that gave you a little bit of extra budget money to go to this meet that helped you do this. The recruit you thought you shouldn't even be recruiting, but you went to her house anyway and got. It's just it's quite an amazing story when you actually look at that trophy and realize it's more than the points that got there. It's the people and their stories, their backgrounds that actually helped build that trophy. As you did so, I can just imagine you, like, I mean, the tears of joy. I'm a little bit speechless on that. I just love that because the emotion comes out. But you did it 3 times.
Yeah.
Which one was the hardest?
Oh, I'd have to say outdoor. Maybe this past outdoor nationals.
So that'd be the third one.
The third one, yeah. This most recent one. I think that one indoor was great. You know what I mean? Like, and we fought our butt off, to win that first title. We had a lot happen, and going into it, you tell your athletes, like, listen, like, we have to be perfect, let everybody else make mistakes. And that's just kind of what we ride off of is, if we go in and we execute and let everybody else make mistakes, then we'll be fine. Like, we just focus on us. And so they did that. They did it amazing. You know what I mean? At that first indoor championship, and then second indoor championship, everybody's firing on all cylinders. And, I think we won by like 60. I don't know. You got to ask Keith. Wow. Ask Keith how much we won by. But no.
Did he get second?
Yeah, I think
I'm not asking him. Get out of here. First of all, he just lost. He just lost his assistant coach, to UNLV. And I'm like, hey man, so I had Doug on. He told me to ask you. Yeah, right. Get out of here. You trying to get me? So Keith was in the conference when I coached, so I know fiery Keith Blackburn. Man. Get out of here.
I know.
I love
it. But the outdoor championship, man, it was a tough one because it was such a roller coaster and it was so up and down. And prior to that, like, we had gone through a lot during that season as a team. And we had gone through certain things that at points it was make or break. Like, we could either go left or we could go right. And we could finish the year as a really, really great team, or we could finish in the top 15, you know what I mean, or the top 10. And so, we went through a lot going into that outdoor championship, and then we had a lot of injuries. We had a lot of athletes that were banged up, and so we didn't know where people were gonna be. And so, the night before the second day, we were in the Holiday Inn in the lobby. Just the lobby room. And we had a team meeting, and, I did my talking. And after that, I think we had like 6 or 7 athletes, sophomores, just kind of get up and talk about, like, what the championship meant to them. We didn't win outdoor the year before, on the women's side. We weren't even in the running on the men's side. And so at this point, going into day 2, we were, I think, 6 points behind on the men's side. And I think we were maybe like 8 points ahead on the women's side. And so, just kind of listening to our athletes and just talk about, everything that they had gone through and like what the championship meant to them, and, all the work that we had put in to get to this point. And then going into day 2, watching how together everybody was, like, like, it wasn't a moment where, like, people were just kind of sitting down, or, like, everybody was there. And we had downs, and we had, like, we had valleys, and we had peaks, you know what I mean? And so it was fun to watch our athletes pick each other up, you know what I mean, when they were in the valleys, and, to celebrate each other when they were in the peaks. And so it was a tough one because it was up and down, but just kind of everything that we had gone through up until that point, I think that was what made it really, really tough. And especially, I mean, all of them are just as special, but I mean, it was really special. It was really special.
On any of those 3 championships, the 2 indoor and 1 outdoor, were you ranked number 1 going in?
Yes. This year, both indoor and outdoor, yes, sir.
So how do you, as a coach, as a leader of the program, we're dealing with, and we're talking about JUCO. Normally I say we're in the college ranks, we're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds. We're dealing with 18 and 19-year-olds. They're essentially high school age, not high schoolers,
Yeah.
but they step away. Okay. How do you deal with, as the leader and your coaching staff as the leaders of 18 to 19-year-old kids, knowing this internet world, this 2022, man, I guarantee you they knew this going in, maybe all season you were ranked number 1 going into the meet. How do you deal with complacency? Meaning, they go in thinking like, we're number 1. We gonna win. We ain't gotta try as hard as we have, but like, we're good. Like, look at us. We're favorites by 60 points or whatever. How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them in, like, hey, the job ain't done until the 404 is over? Like, how do you do that? I just feel like 18, 19-year-olds, heck, 30-year-olds, it's tough to, when you're on the top of the mountain, to keep that fire and know that the job has to go all the way through the end.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, my staff is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't do any, you know what I mean, any of this stuff. You know what I mean? I'm the head coach. I drive the bus,
All right, hold on,
but
pause. I'm getting much more of this. I'm just challenging people. So
yeah.
we're going to strike that from the record. And,
All right.
and what I mean by that is, so this, my whole life, not my job, not my passion, my whole life is track and field coaches from all levels, high school, college, etc. I just have such a loving passion, love for who you are as a person, and that this is your profession. Okay. And
Right.
I hear this quite often. This is a very cliche. I'm sorry, I'm gonna call you out, Doug. What you just said was
Yeah.
extremely cliche. I hear it
Yeah.
a lot. I'm just the bus driver. I hear that
Yeah.
all the time. Bull crap. I wish I could cuss sometimes on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's bull crap. Now, that doesn't take away what your very first sentence from my question was, I have an amazing staff. They did it. They boy, if it wasn't for them, I'm putting words in your mouth now. If it wasn't for them, this wouldn't have happened. That stays true. But it's
Mhm.
this, we are either going to be really good friends after this podcast, Doug, or you are never going to
Nah, man,
want to
you
talk to
speaking
me
it.
again.
You're speaking it.
It's fake humility. Humility is
Yeah.
awesome. Fake humility is bad. Awesome, or is bad.
Yeah.
When you say I'm just a bus driver, because what that does is that diminishes all the work that you're doing, all the work that you
Yeah.
have done to get to this point. You worked your tail off. I didn't even see, I saw you coach at the meet a little bit, but I know, again, we talked about, the culmination to earn that trophy, the culmination to finish a season, by the way, is equally as impactful. But what you've done as a husband, as a father, as a coach, that's important. And so you diminish that, which means you diminish the sacrifices your family makes, the sacrifices your coaching staff and their families made, the sacrifices that your kids and their families made, your athletes and their families made. You diminish it. So
Yeah.
we're going to strike that. I'm going to beg of you, remove that from your vocabulary.
All right. I got you.
And I'm going to ask the question again. How do you, as a leader and leading with your coaching staff, how do you work with 18 and 19-year-olds so that they're going into the meet ranked number 1? They've won a national title already. They're national champions themselves. So they know what it is. How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them understanding that the job's not done until the job is done?
Yeah. All right. So no, honestly, no, we really, and I'm glad you said that. But I honestly, we have an amazing staff. Like,
Mhm.
I really do have an amazing staff, and that was one of the things that, that we had a lot of conversation about, is like keeping them on track and keeping them humble and keeping them, hungry. And I think a lot of times, like, throughout the season, you get humble, and I think that as coaches, we have to be honest with our athletes, and we have to make sure that they understand that you got humble. You know what I mean? And this is where we're at, and this is what you've been doing. Like, we got to adjust those things. And so it was a lot of that throughout the season, and just a lot of humbling our athletes. I'd be straight up with them, like, like, yeah, we're number 1, but like, we won last year. Like, we haven't won this year yet. Like, what have we accomplished this year? Right now, we're a one hit wonder. and like just to kind of keep that hunger in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then even going into nationals, like we talked a lot about like furthering the target, and so
Mm.
I talked to him about like just going to, I even at a gun range, it's a lot easier to hit the bullseye if the target is close.
Mm-hmm.
But as we continue to work and work and work and stay dedicated and not take days off, and what I mean, do things like that, then we can keep furthering the target from the next person, and
Mm.
continue getting better and developing and staying focused on the overall goal for everybody. And so like we talked a lot about furthering the target, and just that dedication that our staff had, myself, I had as well, but just keeping them focused, and sometimes holding them accountable and letting them know like you got humbled because we started slacking off and we got to get it together.
Yeah, that's what I talk about when coaches use the term "I'm just a bus driver." What you just described there, extremely difficult. So you talked about humbling athletes to keep them hungry, but at
Hmm.
the same time, you're also building up those athletes, right? You're also talking to that
Yeah.
athlete that doesn't think she can make the 100-meter finals. Like, oh no, if you execute here, you absolutely can make it and maybe win it, right? At the same
Right.
time, those are two opposing forces potentially. That is
Hmm.
extremely hard. Good coaches do it more often, and you were able
Right.
to do that with your coaching staff. I'm not, again, I'm not saying this is taking away anything from the coaching staff or academic advisors, et cetera, all the people that play into the totality of a collegiate program here. I'm just saying, man, when you say I'm just a bus driver, you
Yeah.
belittle this amazing job of humbling. So keeping them hungry, that's the better term, keeping them hungry, not getting complacent, and also uplifting these young people, because it's hard. They're 18, 19 year olds, social media, classes, etc. And you got coach yelling, "You're awesome," but don't you think you're awesome? That's
Yeah.
tough, man. So that's why I challenge you on that. Okay. It's amazing. Winning is hard. So to do it three
Hmm.
times is amazing. To do it one time is amazing. So to repeat that several times, man, bravo to you, the staff. And again, it takes the whole village, right? So again, all your academic advisors, administration, et cetera,
Hmm.
it's just amazing. But then you leave. And when I say you
Right.
leave, Iowa Western, I mean, like, yesterday, you recently were announced as the new head coach at the University of North Texas, the Mean Green. When I
Yes,
went to
sir.
school at Troy University, we were in the same conference as North Texas back when they were really good at football and they used to beat our butt a lot. But then we flipped it and won
Yeah.
5 in a row. So I'm not a big fan of North Texas as it relates to football history with my alma mater. But it is an amazing campus, great area. McKinney, right? No, not McKinney.
Denton.
Denton, basically north of the DFW area. Just a great place. You're in Texas. Come on, man. Being a Texas guy,
Yeah.
you know how great that is. What I
Yeah.
thought we should maybe transition to is, so you're the head coach. There's nothing really to ask you about North Texas. You ain't even stepped on campus more than one time or two times. You
Right.
ain't met your team yet. There's a schedule to be. You have so much work in front of you, and again, that's why I'm just so grateful that you would even take the time to join us. You're busy, my man. You got so much to do. You're behind schedule already, right? So I'm so thankful for that. But what I thought, our two goals here on the Gill podcast, one is to uplift and honor your amazing journey in this profession. And then the other is to bring value to those who, I'm just so humbled, would listen to us. This is not an easy podcast to listen to. And what I mean by that is it's long, right? We're not a 20-minute podcast. There's amazing 20-minute, 30-minute podcasts that are out there that have so much value. We're a long form podcast. We're an hour and a half in. If you were still here, God bless you. You're getting to a
Yeah.
good part. You're about to get some real value here. What I thought, Doug, is you have being named the head coach of University of North Texas is something that a lot of people dream about. You dreamed about it
Hmm.
as going from high school to a college coach. There are plenty of high school coaches, college coaches that have a goal for their career to be the head coach of their own program. This is your third head coaching program: Garden City Community College, Iowa Western Community College, and now a Division I program. what did you help us, for those who are listening that have this goal of being a head coach? Maybe they have an interview coming up. Maybe they have the thought of being a head coach, but they're like, I don't even know how I would prepare. Can you walk us through some of the things that you did to prepare to get the job? Not necessarily, we can kind of put to the side, I had to be a good coach first. Like, you had to garner attention from an administration to be hired, and that takes winning, right? And so whether that's winning conference or having a lot of All-Americans, et cetera, and you won national title. So it's only fair that other administrations were like, well, wait a minute, he led them. Like, maybe I like a winner of my team, so I need to hire him. What did you do personally and professionally to prepare for this job? You applied, but you didn't just show up for the interview and say, hey, I'm Doug, hire me. Here's my 3 trophies, hire me. You had to do some preparation. What might you have done? What did that look like?
Yeah. So from the beginning, I wanted to make sure it was gonna be a good fit. You know, I'm in a good situation at Iowa Western. My administration is great. I love my assistant coaches. We're successful, and so do I want to step away from Iowa Western at this point? And
Right.
so I did a lot of research on the school. I wanted to be I wanted to be back home. I wanted to be in Texas, and I wanted to be closer to my family. So those are all emotional things, but I had to make sure, with 3 kids, I and my wife, like, I'm uprooting my entire family to move, to Denton, Texas. And so I did a lot of research on the school and the area and things like that. Being from Texas, the Dallas and the DFW area, and everything in it, but not living in it, and I've never lived in Dallas or in the DFW area. I had to do a lot of research and just try to make sure, okay, is this going to be a great fit? Is it going to be a great opportunity, for my family? Is my wife going to be able to find a job? And so I just kind of did a lot of research across the board on the town, on the school, all of those things. And then I started kind of, like, once I started just kind of getting interested in it, I was like, okay, yeah, this is a great spot. This is a great place. Then I started looking at the team and the conference, and obviously I knew who was going to be interviewing me and things like that. And so I started researching them and just kind of seeing, like, Ren is an amazing man, and so I got on YouTube. There was times where I'd be on my computer and I'm working on recruiting stuff for Iowa Western, and I get on YouTube on my TV and I put up a podcast or an interview that he had done, and just kind of to see, what are his thoughts, like, what does he want out of a athletic department.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
No, you're good.
That's interesting. Because it's one thing to want to know who you're going to be working for potentially. What were you looking for? Were you looking for, like, in different interviews and stuff from him, what he looks for in coaches, or mannerisms? What were you looking for in that type of research for the role?
Just his thought process. I went back and I looked at one of the first interviews that he did when he took the job, and like, just to kind of hear what he was talking about and what he wanted from a program. If you don't know Ren Baker, he's a D2 guy, and I knew that we would have that connection as both being D2 guys. He's in my AA guy. He came from Northwest Missouri, and I knew I was a Emporia State guy. And so, like, just trying to find different connections, different things like that, because I know, once we get into a conversation, and I mentioned that I'm a Division II athlete, or a past Division II athlete, or like, different things pop up. And so just trying to find different things, but, like, really with him, just trying to get to know how he operates, what he's looking for, what his expectations are of the program. You can find all of that stuff online, man. Like, you can find out a lot about a person, and what they're looking for and things like that right there on online, and listening to interviews and things. And so I definitely took a lot of looks at some of those things.
So in that aspect, now looking back, week ago. Did that
Yeah.
help you in the interview process? That actual research now, when you're in the interview process, when you look back at that now, did that actually like, do you like, oh yeah, man, that really helped me to kind of understand what he was looking for, and I was able to maybe, make sure that I emphasize that part of my culture belief, or de-emphasize this part, etc. Did that actually help in the process of the interview?
Yeah. I mean, it helped a ton. Hold on. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Uh, that's my wife.
Oh man, that's important. Yeah, we're right at our time. I was going to ask her, are you cool for a few more minutes?
No.
She was like,
Yeah,
how'd it
I'm
go with
good.
that guy? Yeah, okay, all right, good.
I'm good. No, no. So it helped a lot.
Good.
It helped a ton. But I mean, it wasn't just that.
Right, right.
I spoke to past coaches of mine. You mentioned Cameron Babb. Me and Cameron Babb had a conversation. We were texting back and forth, and I spoke to him. I spoke to my past ads, and just
What are you talking to them about? Or are you asking them questions of like for preparation, or are you asking ego questions? And what I mean by that is, hey, Cameron, am I ready? You're a head coach. You've known me for a while. Am I ready for that? What are you actually asking those former ADs, coaches? What are you actually asking them? What are you trying to figure out?
just kind of what did, like when I'm talking to my former AD, I'm looking for like what type of things do you think he's going to be looking for, like what kind of questions do you think that might pop up, and
Mhm,
like what do you think that the negatives about me, like what am I going to have to overcome,
mhm,
or what do you think that he's going to feel like I have to overcome, or whatever the case is. And so just kind of going through, like me and Jeremy, we kind of had like a mock interview little
yeah.
session, you know what I mean? And so
Wow.
just kind of talking through a lot of things, and then even like reaching out to coaches that were JUCO before they went D1, and just
Mhm,
kind of seeing what that transition is like
mhm,
what are some of the things that you struggled with
mhm.
in the first few months or the first year or whatever, and what are some of the things that were easy going into that transition. And so just trying to get a feel of what the process is going to be like, and kind of what I have to look forward to.
Having a circle, a network that will speak truth to you is invaluable, right?
Hmm.
Seems like you have that. You talked about one of the things that you would talk to Cam and Jeremy and those guys was, what are the negatives about me? I'm curious. What did they say? What was something that they're like, you know what, Doug, you tend to do this, and that might rub this guy the wrong way? Or what was a negative that they give you, that something that like, okay, because now you're in your head, you're like, well, I better get better at it. But what was something
Yeah.
someone shared negative? And I'm asking a very
No.
vulnerable question, by the way. I'm so sorry. I'm not
It's
sorry,
all
actually. I take
good,
away the
man.
sorry, but a very vulnerable question. So again, just appreciate you being, open and authentic here.
Yeah, no. So like, and talking to Jeremy, like he was like, tell your story, man. Like, tell your story because you got a good story. And he's like, you don't tell your story enough, but people need to hear it. And so like he said going into it, like make sure you tell your story. Like if they have a question, like tell them, but tell them, something that you might have dealt with to prepare you for that moment, or prepare
Mhm.
you for whatever question that they have. And so that was something that I'm not a big I try to stay as humble as possible. You know what I mean? I'm not a big up in your face, I'm not, that's just not me. And so I do have a hard time, you know what I mean, talking about myself,
Mhm.
or talking about my accomplishments and things like that. And so, he was like, don't be afraid to talk about those things and bring those things up because you've been successful.
Is this Jeremy that said this?
Yes,
Yeah, I just gotta give a
Jeremy
shout out
Capo.
to Jeremy Kappa. He's still there at Iowa Western today, right?
No, he's not. He's not. He's working for Mammoth Construction.
I
They
know
do
Mammoth
sports to
Construction very
plug.
well. That's funny. I know those guys very well. You got to tell them, hey man, I just talked to Mike Honey. Like, yeah, I know Mammoth very well. That's awesome. But shout out
Yeah,
to Jeremy. What a leader. First of all, he's helping you get another job from from the university. That's amazing. He
right.
really speaks truth to power there with you on that. It gives you great advice. I mean, wow, Jeremy's spot on. I mean, really, really spot on. Because it's easy to talk about the positives, and not the negative. What you've been through, but also it's interesting in the, I'm gonna call it the social media world. When you talk about, Doug, you have a hard time talking about the positives of yourself. Like, you know, I'm gonna use the word brag, but that's a negative connotation, but being proud of the things that you have accomplished and that you have done. On the social media world, it is 100-to-1 ratio. 100 times it's easy for us to say something bad. I hated this. I didn't like this. And then as soon as someone says, man, I just published a new book, you know, here it is, and I'm proud of it. Or, hey, I just won the national title. Here's a picture of the trophy. And people are like, oh, brag, humble brag, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, wait, he should be proud. And by the way, we should be proud for him. It's like we think this like success is a pie and there's only so many slices to get. That's not real world, man. Your success does not pull away from anybody else's success. We can all have success, man. So while it may be hard for you, Doug, be proud. I mean, golly, you've done amazing stuff. Be proud. Don't be braggadocious, but be proud. Don't shy away from that.
Most definitely.
So what was there a question during the interview process that threw you for a loop? Like, again, if someone is like trying to prepare for their own interview, was there a question that you're like, oh man, they asked that a little differently than I was expecting? Or was there anything that kind of like, oh man, and you had to, you know, in the moment scramble and figure out the right answer, authentic answer?
Yeah. So I probably, you know, one of the things that came up was, you know, how are you going to be successful in the first 3 months of the job?
Oh, first 3 months.
And
wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're the track coach. You talking about like, we don't start season until January. I know we practice,
Right.
but I'm saying the first 3 months. So July, August, September, school has barely started, practice has barely started, and they were interested. How are you going to be successful in those 90 to 100 days? Interesting. Yeah, I would not have seen that one. Yeah. What did you do? Did you be like, look, man, I'm be moving. That's gonna be success.
I know, right? I could get moved in. No, it was, and I knew it wasn't an X's and O's or, you know what I mean, winning type of
It
question.
can't be.
This is
Yeah.
like, but building and what I told him was just building relationships. You know, like I think that's gonna be important. And you know, just as new as I am coming into everybody else, you know what I mean? Everybody's new to me. And so the process is different, and just kind of learning how things run at North Texas. You know, I've been in Iowa Western, and their system is different from Garden City system of doing things. And you know, just kind of trying to get adjusted to the way that they want things done administratively. And you know what I mean? And then just building those relationships, not only with the administration, but with the student athletes, and getting them to understand and buy and trust and believe in, you know, the culture that we're bringing into North Texas, and understand that, like, to be honest with you, Mike, like winning is fun. Like it's a lot of fun to win, but you know, you got to do a lot behind the scenes. Like you got to do a lot right through the process in order just to be on the level to be able to, you know what I mean, to compete, to win. And I tell my athletes, like, listen, like track is individual. So when you get in the when you line up for a 100-meter dash, there's 6 heats, and you know what I mean, like you're beating out 47 people to be number one. And that's hard. Like, and it takes a lot of work. And so just to get everybody to understand that, like, I don't care about winning. Like, I care about what are you doing day to day? Like, how are we getting better as a person? Like, how are we working towards that, you know what I mean, towards that ultimate goal? Are we taking days off? Are we, you know what I mean? Are we doing things our way? You know, like, are we sticking to the plan? Are we gonna trust the plan when it gets hard and start to do our own thing? Or are we just gonna keep trusting the plan and trust your coach and keep moving forward? And so, like, those different things, you know what I mean? Like in that first 3 months, you have to really hammer those things into a lot of people, not just your athletes, but like even the administrative side, and have like get them to understand that like I'm working towards greatness. And even now, like I'm working towards greatness. Like I'm not the best coach in America. You know what I mean? Like I was the best coach in JUCO 3 times. Like that was a blessing. And we had amazing athletes and amazing coaches to get to that point. But now like it's a whole nother beast, and I'm working towards, that same greatness. And so to get everybody to realize that, that's the mentality, like, that's what we're trying to do, and building those relationships and understanding like that this is what we're trying to do, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and we want to do it the right way. Like that's important.
Well, we've heard that before. That is a big part of what Jamie Pollard at Iowa State said as well, in
Yeah.
regards to, I asked him, what do you look for in hiring a head coach? And he goes, first of all, you got to know the craft. You got to coach, right? That's table stakes. He goes, but then he goes, it's a relationship profession. He's like, you're going to be working with academic advisors, alumni, fundraisers, admissions, etc. If you can't work with a multitude of people, it's probably not the position for you. So I love that you definitely you doubled down, that you made, you validated that. Okay, two more questions. I know we're past time.
No, you're good. You're good.
So thankful, man. Okay, two questions. How much did you lean on that network of yours in regards to referrals? Like, did you have people call or email the AD, or maybe someone knew the SWA and so they would email on your behalf or call on your behalf? Did you lean on that at all?
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think it takes relationships to be able to take opportunities and things like that, like this. And so I reached out to people. I had a conversation with Jeremy, and I told him about the chance of everything. He was like, "Oh yeah, I know this guy that's there, and I can reach out. You want me to reach out to him?" Yeah, it won't hurt. It won't hurt. And so I think that once you build a good network of people, and you have people that are reaching out, and sometimes, and I don't know if it helped at all. That probably be a Ren Baker type question,
Right.
but like it definitely helps. I think when you're going through a process like that, and if you're one of the favorites, and your name is the name that keeps getting floated around, and it's nothing but successful or good things that are coming out of people's mouths about you and things like that. I think that those things definitely help when people are able to, or when you have people in your corner to be able to willingly reach out to people and put in a good word for you.
Okay, last question. So I like how you're like, oh boy, here we go.
No, I'm good.
Sometimes I see in Doug's face the regret of saying yes to the see, he's got this dog coming in now. It's like, all right, we should wrap this up. All right, Doug, there is I'm going to call it a myth, because it's half truth, half myth, but it's a thought in specifically the college coaching world, maybe specifically track and field, but probably not. The myth is, and I love busting myths, the myth is that if you don't know someone, you ain't getting the job.
Yeah.
It sounds like you didn't really know anybody at North Texas. I didn't hear you say anything about, oh yeah, Ren's associate AD was Jeremy before he went to Iowa Western. So we knew him that way. It sounds like you saw the job posting, you applied for it like a normal human being, and then you prepared for it and then interviewed and got the job. It seems like, I dare I say, you earned the job that you didn't know.
Yeah.
Is that true? Did you have an a former classmate at Emporia State was the SWA? Was there anything like that? Or did you just straight up apply and got noticed and then did the preparation and earned the job?
Yeah, so I didn't know anybody throughout the process on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
There were different connections. Natasha Oakes, she's an amazing lady. She graduated from Emporia State, but she graduated 2 years before I got there.
Mm-hmm.
And so she knew Cameron Babb, and she knew some of the people that I knew on the team at that point, that were crossovers to my time when I was there. And so, like just that connection was
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with Jeremy um and the athletic director at North Texas, Warren Baker, and they had a prior connection, but we didn't know each other. It's just kind of that person in between, that middleman. And
Yeah.
so they kind of had, but I didn't know anybody. Like I didn't know anybody on a direct level within the North Texas system or anything like that. The funny part about it, and I'll kind of share this, is Natasha, and I had no clue. I didn't know until like 2 days ago, but she was like, "Did you even notice that I followed you in like August?" I was like, "No." And she was like, "Yeah, like I kept seeing stuff about Iowa Western, and everybody hears about Iowa Central. D Brown's a great coach. Shout out to D Brown."
Yeah, absolutely.
But she was like, I had heard about Iowa Central and then all of a sudden I started seeing Iowa Western, Iowa Western, Iowa Western. And so, I followed you and I started following you and kind of, and so it's just kind of funny. And I grew up a Christian, and I am, like I said, my father was a pastor growing up and things. And so I always, I always say, God puts things in your path, and you sometimes don't even notice, or you sometimes don't even know that those things are in your path. And so some of the good things and some of the bad things, and all the way across the board, are preparing you for something for you to take later on. And so it's just funny, like how that path is, my path along the way has kind of led me to North Texas. And my assistant coach had a dream, and this is the last thing I'll say, but she had a dream at one point, and she told me about the dream. And she said that, I had a dream that you called me, and we were in Green in Texas somewhere, and this is in like September, October. We were sitting down. We were sitting down eating, and she was like, "I had a dream," and you said, "We're out, coach," or you were like, we're out. And she was like, "I didn't know what you were talking about." And so now, fast forward to this point, like I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that dream was pretty dang real. But just that path, like that path, it leads you to anything. And so I tell everybody, take the good from everything, because the good is the good. But I think sometimes you gotta take a deeper look at the negatives, and because the negatives are the things that you have to grow on and get better from and build off of. And so the goods are the good, the great things are great, but I think sometimes those failures are, you get the feedback that you need to be a lot better moving forward. And so I've definitely taken a lot of that feedback and moved into this direction.
Well, I love the lesson you gave there about her following you on social and stuff like that. Doing the right thing is always the right thing, not because the truth is you never know who's watching you, but doing the right thing is doing the right thing no matter what. But you never know who's watching. You never know who the
Really
AD that's like, hey, just in case, I need to make sure I keep my eyes and open. And the good ADs do that. You never know who's following your path, and when the right opportunity comes along for you and your family, and then for your new program, man. Doug, thank you so much, man. We caught you so early in the process. You speaking of green, you weren't even able to wear green. You ain't even got your first North Texas polo or anything, man.
I don't have anything yet.
I love
I
it.
got to get you a shirt, man. We got to send you a shirt so you can represent, man.
I'd be humbled.
I got to make sure I get you one.
Thank you. I'm so humbled. I love representing, programs where I have relationships. So that would mean the world to me, man. You know that. Thank you for that. It's on record now, so you're gonna have to come through.
I got you.
Doug, man, we just want to bless you as you move into a new program here at University of North Texas. What you're going to do and the staff you put together, and the administration and team around you. I think there's nothing but up. I think, what was it, Conference USA? Is that right, for North Texas?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Conference USA this year, and then American next year.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's what I was wondering. I had American in my head too. I think the other coaches in the conference had kind of a twofold reaction. I bet half of them were like, "Crap, man, this guy's going to come in and do something. We better step up." And then, because those coaches are really, competitive people, they also were like, "Great, bring it. You get better. That means we got to get better." So I think, there's a lot of great competitors in that conference. So you're going to do an amazing job. I can't wait to see you at meets at Texas Relay. You're going to go to a lot more Texas meets now, man. But I think, it's just going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Keep going to Drake, though. That's my favorite meet in the whole world. So you got to keep going up there, man. But again, just want to bless you. It's a busy time. You got to win these next 3 months, right? Just like like Ren said. So get on it it. I'll quit bugging you with this podcast. But just again, thank you, man. The most valuable thing you can give me is your time. And I'm just so grateful for you.
Yes, sir, man. I'm grateful for you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, man.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, go get to work. Go get a green shirt or something.
I got you, my man. Thank you.
All right. See you, boss.